I'm going to be singing a hymn that has a lot of resonance with our history as Americans. It's based on a poem called The Present Crisis. It's written by James Russell Lowell. And anybody who's hung around New England heard the phrase that the Lowells only speak to the Cabots and the Cabots only speak to God. He was an 8th generation Lowell, and this is still 1845. So these are founders of that part of our nation. The poem was very long, 19 lines, I think. The hymn is about a fourth as long. It was condensed by a guy named Garrett Porter, and he took lines from the poem. You can go online and read the whole poem if you'd like, and he extracted from it in 1896. But the poem was originally written as a protest against the Mexican War. As a former history teacher, I know most Americans don't even remember much about the Mexican War other than the Alamo. But from the point of view of many of the people living, at least in non-slave states, they thought that this was a challenge to the fundamental moral core of our country, because the Mexican War was basically fought so that we could claim Texas as a slave state and expand slavery. As the country moved west, we could move slavery with it. And people like Lowell and Thoreau thought that this was a morally corrupt idea. So he wrote this poem. He was encouraged to write it by another poet, John Greenleaf Whittier. And he eventually got around to writing, and I think it was published, as they did with Dickens and people, they were published serially, anything long, because they want people to read and then get excited about the next week or whatever. So that's how it came out, The Present Crisis, and how it's relevant today because in 1908, when they were forming the NAACP, many people don't realize that most of the founders of the NAACP were white. And one of the founders was a woman named Mary White Ovington. And she brought up the idea that we should have a publication, the NAACP should have a publication, and maybe we could take something from this poem that was now very popular. It's considered almost the anthem of the abolitionist movement. So she said, let's consider this poem. Someone else spoke up and said, crisis. Yeah, that's what we should name it. And they hired W.B. Du Bois, one of the first black people to get a PhD from Harvard, and one of the great intellectual giants, really, of America. And he became the editor, and that was probably the most popular, or one of the most influential publications in the black community for most of the 20th century. So it's still today, the NAACP magazine is called Crisis. So the other part of this is that it's had resonance along the way. Martin Luther King thought this was one of his favorite poems. And, well, the hymn that was derived from the poem, the hymn is called Once to Every Man and Nation. And Martin Luther King loved this so much that he quoted it in one of his famous sermons called Remaining Awake During the Great Revolution. I don't know if everybody realizes it. He was one of the first woke people in America. Woke didn't start 10 years or 15 years ago. It kind of started with, King was one of the people. I was fortunate enough with one of my college friends, I grew up in the Washington area, We went to the National Cathedral on March 31st, 1968, and we got to the processional hymn was "Once to Every Man and Nation." And we heard King preach this sermon. Unfortunately, 5 days later, he was, murdered in Memphis, Tennessee, down there to support the black man who collected the garbage for the city. He quotes in his sermon from this hymn, "Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future, and beyond the dim unknown stands God, within the shadow, keeping watch above his own." So I will attempt to give you the sense of it through melody. Once to every man and nation comes the moment to decide. In the strife of truth with falsehood, for the good or evil side, some great cause God's new Messiah, offering each the bloom or blight, and the choice goes by forever twixt that darkness and that light. Then to side with truth is noble when we share her wretched crust. Hear her cause bring fame and profit, and 'tis prosperous to be just. Then it is the brave man who chooses, while the coward stands aside, till the multitude make virtue of the faith they had denied. By the light of burning martyrs, Christ, thy bleeding feet we track, toiling up new Calvary's ever, with the cross that turns not back. New occasions teach new duties. Time makes ancient good uncool. They must upward still and onward, who would keep abreast of truth. Though the cause of evil prosper, yet 'tis truth alone is strong. Though her portion be the scaffold, as